You're listening to Mark Langley's Horsemanship Podcast, a podcast dedicated to helping people find solutions in a calm, connected way. I'm Jenny Langley, and with me, of course, is Mark Langley, here to shed his expertise on how we can help our horses. You've heard Mark talk about hyper-focused horses. This week, we'll explain more about what this actually means, its consequences, and how to detrain this. But first, what do you do when even a well-known show pony comes into your care but proves to be hard to catch, frozen, and very scared? Lynn is facing this problem after purchasing a 9-year-old miniature horse. She's keen to learn and she's smart but trigger sensitive. A sudden movement or noise, and it could be something simple like raising your hand, causes her to run or freeze. For a horse that's had so much exposure in shows, why is she like this?
Well, just like all horses that have, I'm guessing the biggest thing is she's been thrown into a lot of intense environments without a lot of education. And it's quite common that little horses, miniatures, Shetlands and all that, can get not enough training because they're small, so someone who's going to ride a 17-hand warm blood, they're going to be real careful to get that horse soft and safe because it's such a massive animal. But you get a little Shetland or a mini, I think they can get manhandled a lot more. And, I think people take it for granted they're small. That's one reason. So then the horse is flooded with all this, taken to shows. And they're just like big horses, they're still terrified as a big horse of going to these new environments they don't understand, taken away from where they're comfortable in trailers and floats and, carted around and all that sort of stuff. So that's one reason why they get just very fragile and terrified, is lack of the right education and foundation to sort of support, their confidence to go to these shows. And then the other side of it is, by the sounds of this horse, it's had a lot of pressure and it's frightened the people. Like it's 9 years old, it's gone to all these shows and it's still frightened the people. They've probably chased it around, they've probably, lunged it around, whatever, and then it's become terrified over the years. And, maybe it has been bullied in a way that has been quite aggressive. It's hard to know. But it sounds like you've got the after product of a horse that's been kind of used and abused and sort of, chucked out, I suppose, which is really sad. And the little horses, as I said before, they're so small that people take it for granted, and it's sad to see.
So for Lynn, she wants some specific tips on how she can catch this particular horse, which presumably would be helpful for anyone who's wanting to know how they can catch their horse in a positive way. What she's finding is that sometimes she can catch her with no problem at all, and other days she's pretty hard to catch and there'll be triggers that set her off. So she's not quite sure why some days it's easy and some days it's hard. But she's noticing that if she's hard to catch and she moves away, say she wants to put the halter on, then she wants to know what to do, because if she gently pursues her, and perhaps talking to her and keeping things calm, it can take quite a long time. And when she does catch her, she finds that she's very compliant. And she's never attempted to kick, although she can see that she's scared, and she will swing her backside to her. So she's just not quite sure if she's handling her in the best way in these catching situations. And can we just go through some tips to give her on how she can just turn things around?
So by the sounds of it, she's very frightened of the rays of energy or the energy coming at her, which is very common of these types of horses. Now, when you think about this, if she freezes and you stop and step back a little and let her relax, well, that's okay, and it's not a bad thing to do. But it's more of something that you do with a horse that's never had a lot of human interaction. With a horse that has memories, she's only frightened because she probably knows what could happen, and when energy comes at her, sort of, especially if she's been chased around a bit. So you have to rectify that. So if you kind of go in cautiously and soft all the time and let her relax a little bit, well, that's okay, but it's never going to fix the memory that energy is a threat, because every time she's worried, you back off with the energy. So she never actually recognizes. So every time she gets worried about energy and you relax a little and take the energy off, then we're still reinforcing the fact that she's still frightened of energy and we haven't fixed it. So something you want to start to do, and if you can draft her off into a smaller yard that she's not going to run off down the paddock, something I would do with a horse like her is I just put her in a yard. I wouldn't put a lot of focus on her and catching her. I'd just go around fixing fences and walking around at a steady speed. I'd go and, do something at the fence and then walk somewhere else. And she's going to sort of scoot around a bit. She's going to move a bit, but you're just going to stay at a steady, rhythmic speed that's faster than a cautious walk. It could be a middle to just normal walk, and you're busy and you're just doing stuff, and you just walk around until eventually she's like, oh, she's not really, that energy's not for me. She's just kind of walking around with a reasonable energy, and it's not personal. That's the first thing I do before I start to put any heat on her. What I mean heat is when you start to walk at her directly, that's when she thinks that's for her. But what I do start to do with these horses is I'll start to sort of walk in a direction where I'm sort of maybe only 2 meters to the side of where she is and walk past her. Now, she'll scoot to the side a bit and go somewhere else, but eventually she might allow you past at 2 meters. So you've actually walked past her with a steady energy, and she's going, oh, well, it's not really for me. I'll just stand here. And then what she gets used to is watching you and your energy and going, oh, humans with energy and, are more of a strong intention aren't dangerous, until you can narrow it down to walking past her at 1 meter. And eventually, you might be walking behind her and around her and everywhere in all different directions, and she's just going, oh, well. And then slowly but surely, you just gently walk past her, you're just about at touching distance, and she might be a little frozen as you walk past at a couple of feet, like you'd be 0.5 meter away from her as you're walking past her, and you just might put your hand out just to give a little touch on the nose and keep walking like you're not even interested in her. Until you kind of can swoop in, not swoop, but what I mean is like you're swooping in, you touch and go, until you can come in at all different angles. Now, this mightn't be happening one lesson. You might, walk past her one day and be able to walk past her with quite a bit of energy at 3 meters. The next day it might be 2 meters, until you can just walk in and touch her from all different angles. And that's how I'd start it, just getting her used to the fact that our energy is not our intention. And when people chase horses and drive horses, they get big in their energy, they push towards the horse, and then the horse thinks that big energy means big problems. So, and that's exactly what we don't want our horses to think. So once you can, but when you do get to that touching point, the energy that you're walking with is not the energy you touch with. So when I do this energy lesson with horses, I might walk up to them with a fairly medium energy, but when I touch them, it's the gentlest little softest touch, and then I walk away with the same energy that I came in. So the touch is like the same touch that you would touch a wild horse on the gently, for the first time. But the energy that you got to the horse with is just normal walking energy. So she doesn't link the energy with your intention. And then slowly but surely, it'll slowly heal that I'm scared of energy. And then as you're doing stuff around the yard while she's in there, you can get busy, you can rake a bit, you can, just do some jobs where you're moving your hands around and you shoo a flyaway with your hat, and, and she'll jump, but over time she'll realise it's not for her. But every interaction you have when you make contact with her is a very soft and thoughtful interaction, until you can come and actually touch her with a bit more. You can rub her a bit quicker or something like that, and she's not frightened of it.
So there's two things that are happening here then that are interesting. So just going back to the energy and her, how she's reading or misinterpreting people's energy. So am I right in saying that if you're quite quiet and gentle around a horse, they can build up trust to that quiet and gentle nature? But if you, even though you've built up that trust, then change your energy so that you're walking quickly, all of a sudden it can completely dissipate and they're back to being frightened and scared. Yes. Is that right?
Yeah.
So you're trying to actually change them so that they can understand that when you're doing at those faster energies, that's not a threat. They need to trust that. So it's not about the gentle, slow movements that we need to build trust with. We're building trust with the everyday, faster, pressured movements.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
So the thing where people have to be careful when they're building a trusting relationship with a horse, it's an honest relationship. So trust is not built without honesty. And I see a lot of people that are very kind and very soft with their horses, but they're not honest in the sense that I'm going to get you on the float very, very quietly because so you're very trusting, and then they drive off with the horse and the float rattles. It's the same scenario. So basically, if suddenly you are building a very calm, consistent relationship with your horse, and you're very quiet in your body language and everything, and then suddenly you shoo a fly or you get a spider on your leg and the horse jumps away from you 5 meters, they suddenly go, you're actually a bit unpredictable.
Yeah, but it's just interesting because I don't think that's dishonest. I would think that if I could earn a horse's trust, and even if that was in a quiet and gentle way, I've earned its trust. In my mind, it knows me. So it would know not to be worried or afraid of me. But you're saying, no, that's not the case. As soon as you change your energy, they react. They can react.
Especially horses that have been traumatized horses.
Right, okay.
Because they have the memory of... So because we haven't triggered the bad memory and said and told them that that's not going to happen when I get big, they can go to a flashback when we get big and energetic. So if we're very, very quiet and then suddenly something big happens, or we're in a hurry because there's a flood or a bushfire, whatever's happening, the horse goes, what's happened to the person who's been so consistent all the time? They've changed. They're in a rush, and maybe they've turned into a monster all of a sudden, because they have memories of those bad experiences and energy with human energy and
because they were lunged or chased or whatever, or driven, or whatever it was.
And if you look at horses in the wild, they're watching horses of all different energies all the time. Horses get big and they're small and they're all the time. But if we come in at this steady, monotone, quiet sort of way, then basically as soon as that spikes, they go, I've never seen you do that before. What's happening?
Yeah. I know what you mean, because I've seen horses in the herd that can be quietly grazing and they're very quiet and they move slowly. It's 1 foot at a time. But then all of a sudden they can lift their neck up, be very, very big, and suddenly put their ears back and chase a horse. And that happens like that, and then it's quiet. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. And the other thing that you're also saying with this is that you're not going to catch the pony. She's just going to actually increase this energy and sort of break down those barriers, touch and walk away. So it's not about the catch so much. You're actually trying to refocus the problem that she has with people.
Yeah.
Okay.
So everything is built, good training is built on mastering a perfect transition. And if you do one catch, you can handle a horse for 3 hours, but you only did one catch to handle it for 3 hours. It's the approach of human energy and the visual stimulants that come from the person that's spooking her. So if you can go in and out 300 times in one session, that's 300 baby catches. Though you didn't catch her, you still walked up to her as if you were going to catch her, then you left again. So 300 catches in one session is better than one catch in 3 hours of handling for a horse like her, because it's a visual that she's looking at, and it's the approach that she's worried about. And then you still might have to do a lot of handling, but you have to work on that transition.
Okay. And what if it's taking her hours? Like, it has taken her hours. She has spent hours in there trying to sort of catch her. Should you be keeping these lessons a bit shorter?
Well, because you're only fixing the fence, you're not really doing a lesson.
Yep.
That's what I say to people, is go and paint some rails and walk around and just do something else for a while. I think people get so intent on focusing on the horse and making this amazing thing, where sometimes we just got to be around that horse in a non-threatening way, and every now and again we might go in and put a little touch on her and walk away, until she's kind of going, you've got to take the heat off them for a little while. They're still in a heated environment because they're still in the environment with the energy, if that makes sense.
Okay. And then when she does catch her and this sort of spinning of the backside towards her, what would you do in those situations?
Well, after 300 touches and goes, that spinning might be a little bit less. So when you put a catch on her, the next thing I would do when I catch her is I would go in with a long rope, and when I put the holder on, I wouldn't automatically sort of, grab hold of her and take her. I'd actually just walk away from her and just, let the rope out a little bit, so she's on about a 3 metre rope. And then at a distance, I just gently pull on her and see if she'll follow that rope at a distance. And I do a lot of lessons where she kind of leads up to me, I touch her, and then I go again, and she leads up to me and I touch her, and then I go again. Just follow the lead at a distance. And with a horse like that, to be brutally honest, some of her training will be going back to what she should have got taught when she was a baby. And you're going to go back to good leading lessons, trusting the feel again, not being trapped in the feel. She sounds like a terrified, trapped horse. And teaching her to lead again on a long rope and stuff like that. So if you went into the videos and you looked at, like, there's one particular lesson with me working a horse that got jumped off a truck, and I've got about a 4 metre rope that I'm teaching it to lead from, because it was quite a frightened horse. You're going to go back to those types of lessons to build her trust of a lead rope and sort of separate leading from body language, so she understands that this is leading and body language is just you being, doing stuff and reset her. And you have to enjoy making positive little changes in horses, not wanting something out of the horse. Otherwise, it's not worth doing, because when you get a traumatized horse, the enjoyment is fixing that trauma, not just going, oh, can I take it to another show, or and just making her feel safe at home and soft at home is going to be a big bonus for you.
So seeing those eyes soften, seeing her lick and chew and just calm down would be the gold. Good luck with it, Lynn. We're here if you have any other questions. I hope that you can keep us posted on how she goes. So going on to hyper-focused horses, Mark, you have been talking about that quite a lot recently. I know you've come across a few of them and you've been sort of working with them to change them. Can you just explain what hyper-focus is?
Hyper-focus is just a horse's inability to have a soft focus that, if you see a horse that's gently rolling its eyes, sniffing ears and moving around, and it's very aware of its environment, like in a 360-degree sort of aspect, and it's not kind of looking off into the distance, and it's just, that's a horse that has a soft, healthy focus. When you see hyperfocus, the horse may hyperfocus on a trainer, for instance. So the trainer's there or the herd person's there, and the horse won't take its eyes off that trainer. The more hyperfocused it is, more likely it's going to want to have two of the front of its eyes on, like a face-up kind of thing. So when you look at really worried hyperfocused horses, every time they want to get something in their vision, they turn their body or really swing their head around so they can stare at it with two eyes, like they're targeting it and fixated on it, and they won't let go of it. In a human aspect, it's a person that is maybe arachnophobic and stares at the spider in the corner and goes, I can't let my eyes off that, because if I look away from that spider, it's going to multiply and then suddenly I'll be covered in spiders. So I'm just going to stay guarded and keep staring at that spider.
So you're saying it is a negative reaction and the horse is in quite a tense, guarded state to be in that hyper-focused state.
And a hyper-focused state usually has all the symptoms of a frozen body, tight muscles, everything's on alert. They're not using their airways properly to process the air. They're just using their eyes, and everything's going through the eyes, and they're not using their three senses as well.
So they're certainly not relaxed and open to learning in any way.
Yeah. No, not searching, just usually go to flight quicker or freeze quicker. Freeze or flight, they won't search, they won't problem solve, they won't interact very well with even just with connection or anything like that. So
from a trainer's perspective, you have a horse that's paying you a lot of attention, but from a teacher's perspective, you're saying, well, they're not in a learning state. Yeah. So what I say to people to get them to, like, I used to use the word focus a lot. Now I'm probably, you're the one, Jenny, who's got a way better grasp than I do of the English language and the correct words for things. So sometimes I make up words and I'm probably wrong. But one of the things that I say to people is I used to use the word, we need a horse's focus. I've changed my wording on that. And I say we need a horse's awareness, not their focus. Because sometimes by teaching people to get their horse's focus, they were thinking I've got to have the horse focused on me. So they were looking for this attention on them all the time. But if you look at a soft horse, and like the other night when we did a demonstration, we had a horse of ours that actually we had to do some hyper-focus work on, I guess, at Liberty. And over a few days I'd done it, but at the demo with the big crowd around, I was really happy with the way he really relaxed. But he could stand there quietly, and from the side angle at a distance of maybe 15 metres, I could wriggle my finger, and he was very aware of that, and he searched and looked away. But even when he was looking away, I could step and move just a slightest movement, and his ear would flick and notice exactly what I was doing whilst he was still searching out and processing where he was going. So he had a very strong awareness. Now, strong awareness is when the horse can use its whole eye and roll its eye back and use the back of its eye, the front of its eye, its ears and everything, and it uses its full vision, which means it's got full access to the side mirrors. When you drive a car and you've got foggy mirrors, when they're nice, big, clear mirrors when you're towing your caravan, you can see all the way back down your caravan. That's kind of what happens to the horse when they're in a nice, healthy state. And they can sort of notice you do the smallest of things, even though they've still got their primary focus doing something else. Okay, so that sounds like the ideal sort of state of mind for a horse to be in when you're doing something with it. What are the impacts of a hyper-focused horse? What have you noticed that they tend to be prone to if they're hyper-focused?
Targeting behaviour. They target their friends, their last place of safety, or us. If we lead them through a scary environment, they might just hyper-focus on us and not process their environment, so they never get any better going through that environment because they've sort of handed it over by just hyper-focusing on a target. Like if someone was just saying, just follow behind mum and dad and don't look at anyone, same sort of scenarios. There's so many sort of variations of it, I suppose. Some of the other horses, they hyper-focus on everything else but us. So you've got the ones that hyper-focus on us and you can't get them to search. And then you've got the others that are worried about people, but they just target things in the distance. There's a cow, there's a kangaroo, there's my friends.
Neck goes up in the air, head goes up in the air.
Yeah. Attention. So some horses are hyper-focused in a guarded way. So they're guarded. So what we're doing all the time, they're hyper-focused on us because they don't trust us. They've been taught to focus on us so much so that they think they're not allowed to look away or anything like that. So they become very guarded and nervous. And then you get the others who are hyper-focused onto the distance and won't recognise us at all. Like we're just invisible.
So in both cases, presumably harder to tap into. Are they a bit more erratic in their behaviour as well?
Yeah, because they're holding like the guarded horses are guarded, so they're holding a guarded tension, which means they could tap into that flight or freeze a lot quicker than they will. And they don't have good proprioception because they're not aware of everything that's happening around them because they've got too strong of a focus on one thing, so everything else around them becomes a blur.
Okay.
So yeah, they don't make good decisions. They crash into horse trailers and floats over obstacles. They don't pick up their feet well. Like, my horse is tripping a lot. I might do some obstacles and pole work because pole work is good for horses that lack proprioception. It's like, well, don't do pole work on a frozen horse because you're just wasting your time. You've got to get in the right mindset before you ever think about obstacles and poles.
Wow. Yes. Okay. So it really does affect things. And presumably they're just a bit more spooky as well with that sort of thing. So Judy, very astutely, has written to us. She thinks that she's got a hyper-focused mare. And she's noticed just, from the videos that she's seen with you working with these horses, she's noticed that this attitude shows up when she's under saddle as well and asking her to move out. So during groundwork, she's always hyper-focused on her and she looks angry no matter what she's doing. Is that common, that these hyper-focused horses just aren't happy? I guess because they're tense.
Much like when you've had an argument with someone and one person lets go of it and the other doesn't. So whenever that horse is hyper-focused on the person, and if people have made that horse feel bad in lunging, and by the sounds of the question, the horse has felt bad about people driving it and pushing it all the time, so it's become angry about that. But because it can't look away and think away, it's hyper-focused on the problem, so it stays angry all the time because it constantly thinks about the problem.
Okay, and I'm just going to quickly mention there that driving, when Mark mentions driving, he's usually talking about people driving their energy into the horse to move them out, not driving under long reins. So this particular mare looks angry no matter what she's doing, especially lunging or even just asking her to walk away from her. She rarely lunges her, but believes she was lunged excessively. So yes, you're right. And she looks angry and very worried. Under saddle, they've come a long way getting her to relax at the walk because she would just take off at a fast gait. And when she asks for a little more speed though, she'll throw her head up. And this is the interesting bit. She'll turn her head slightly so that her mare looks out on her on one eye. And she has a very angry look. So she's improved a little bit in that under saddle walk. But Judy would like to know, is there something else that she can be doing so that she could, because when she asks for her to go faster, obviously it all falls apart at that point. She's trying to get her to focus on outside things, not so much on her, because it does cause her to spook when she does finally notice something other than her. So have you got any ideas for how she can continue? Now that she's identified this as an issue, what can she actually do? Okay,
so I've just had 2 horses at the last clinic here, hyper-focuses. It's one of every single clinic you've got you've got the same categories most times, especially when it's dealing with the horses that have had trouble. So the first thing that I do with a horse that has an inadjustable focus, I work on the eye, and you'll see some videos online or me with a hand pressing a horse's eye a little bit and just pulsing. And every time the horse presses its focus in, I might just pulse with the flag or something at the back or the side of its eye a little bit just behind it until it sort of just glances away. And I'll do that over and over and over on one side and then on the other side until I can put a little feel up near its eye and the horse blinks or, looks away or starts to blink. You might see some rapid blinking and then some softer blinking. But when the horse lets go of the hyperfocus, you will see it start to breathe, draw in air, sniff the smell of the air. They'll stretch a little because they're going down to sniff the ground, stuff like that. And you'll see a big let go. But as soon as they can adjust that focus off you or where they think the danger's coming from, and that sounds like what you've got there with your horse, there'll be a moment of just slight let down, relax, and then they'll kind of freeze again and you do it again until eventually they can go, I can look away and I don't have to keep my hyper focus on that person. So once you've, and that might take some time, like with the horse I was talking about, I did some Liberty with, I probably did about 3 or 4 sessions, and then by the 4th session, he was really starting to turn loose and he just stood nicely, softly and walked around softly, sniffing, breathing, exploring. So I use the term, everybody remembers the Ole, Dora the Explorer. There's Dora the Explorer, but when Dora doesn't have a medication because she's got schizophrenia, she has her schizophrenic sister, which is Dora the Destinator. Okay, so Dora the Explorer is a healthy mindset. Dora the Destinator is just another form of fixation and leaving. So if your horse looks away and just runs off, it means it's just targeted another thing and ran away. But if it looks away and searches, it explores its environment, so it's starting to trust you more. So, you just work on those eyes, until the horse can stand and look away. And then something I do is I create movement somehow in them. So a really good lesson that I did with just a hyper-focused horse at the last clinic is I just got the owner to stand beside the horse around the wither, taught her to get the horse to look away first, like I just explained. And then I said, just cluck, make a bit of a noise, tap your leg or something until the horse kind of just wants to move a little bit, and just let him move a little bit. And then ask again until they can look away, search, and just walk out with you beside them. You can have a lead rope on them so they don't run off. I actually did it. I do it also with horses at Liberty, because at Liberty sometimes they feel they got more choices, and it can take that emotional hobble off, and sometimes you can get a change a little quicker. And then I just got them to walk beside their horse until the horse was like, I can have you beside me, and I can think out there, and I can look away a bit, and I can do this, and you do that on both sides. And that is kind of getting the horse used to you being behind its eyes and it thinking forward softly. And then the next phase is you get on and you try and create that same feeling. So, and if you go into the one range start videos, there's so many videos on one range start. Why is one range start so important? Because you're not pushing a horse forward with energy. You're just getting it to find and search in the rain until your horse is leading out and carrying you. You're not pushing it along with your legs. And for those horses, it might take you 500 one-rein starts on both sides till that horse follows that rein all the way through and just walks out softly. But as Tom Dorrance said, and I think it was him that said that, but it's come through that sort of lineage, is I follow you, you follow me, then we go together. So in order to follow a horse, the horse has to go first, which means this searching away, thinking away, follow the feel, and you make the decision to go, and us just tag along behind them gently is the key to getting them to soften. And then when they really trust carrying us and going forward or beside them, on them, all that sort of stuff, and they don't have to look back at us all the time and they're not paranoid about us, then we can start to guide them a bit more. But with those horses, you're basically going back to what I would do on a horse's first 3 or 4 rides.
So right back to the beginning, reteaching them.
Yeah. So unfortunately, some people don't like to hear that. And I know I sort of come across this sometimes in my training, that because I'm a mechanic, I just lay it out. I'm a mechanic in the sense of horses. I lay it out how it is. And sometimes people say, oh, geez, doom and gloom. I'm like, yeah, but this is what the horse needs to fix these things. Once these things are fixed, you'll probably find you're not restarting the horse from scratch. You'll fix that, then all of a sudden you'll step up and go, oh, well, the horse has already been ridden out, it's done all this, but now it feels good.
Yeah, so, and that's the big difference, is for her to be able to ride it out under saddle safely. So go back to these groundwork exercises with the one rein starts and perhaps one rein leading, which is in the long reining videos. Excellent. Well, I hope that helps for you, Judy, and great question. Thank you to Lynn for sending your question through, and thanks, Mark. We will be back again next week with some more questions. See you then.
Thanks, Jenny. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for listening to Mark Langley's Horsemanship Podcast. This episode is one of hundreds more. So if you are interested in learning all about how Mark trains and changes horses' mindsets, and yes, he really does do that, so that they are more open and willing, listen to another. They are packed with practical insights that everyone can use.